Okay, so this isn't necessarily ideal. My camera setup's not that great. But what I've got here is I've taped this off, which is what you'll want to do when you start this. And then, you know, if you look at my example, you'll see that the center line is a whole series of squares that don't have anything in them. In order to make sure that you don't accidentally put that, put paint there, you might want to just put an X there. Now you also can write the names of the colors down on the side. I've got quinacridone red, cad yellow light, and dioxazine purple. I'm just going to do these three colors and show you basically how I'm going to handle this. So if I mix this, I mean obviously with the initial color, you just need enough to cover the surface. So this is a square, it's got tape on it. So you just use the, oops, let me get this other light on. There we go. I think that'll help. Maybe not. Yeah, that's a little better. All right, so I'm just taking the color with the palette knife, and what I'm doing is trying to fill the square with an even amount of paint. When you put the tape down, you want to be sure that you put it down pretty solidly so you don't accidentally get paint going underneath the tape. And you know, there's a little bit of moving around here trying to get this to line up and cover. And you want to try to make sure you don't get it on a nearby square, which I just did. I haven't done this in a while. So what you can do in that case is just kind of wipe it out. You could even take a little bit of terps, or once it's dry you can paint that area out, because that's one of those middle areas where there's nothing happening. Now you're going to make the same line down this way that you make across here. So the quinacridone is also in this first pass here. You know, it takes a little while if you haven't done this, but it's actually really helpful to mix with a palette knife. It gives you a much better mixtures. And then they're much cleaner, because when you mix with a brush, like to do this assignment, if you're mixing with a brush, you would spend so much time cleaning your brushes to try to get clean mixtures. And with this, once I have this down, you know, you can just wipe it off with a paper towel, and you're done. All right. So now I have the two reds, and what I could do at this point is, I think what I'll do, because I'm doing this all at once, see, clean that off, and then you get nice clean color here. So this is cad yellow. This was a little bit oily right out of the tube, so I'm sort of mixing it in a little bit, so I get a nice sort of rich enough batch that I can cover this well. So this is cad yellow light, or cad yellow medium. And same deal, try not to run into the other paint that you've already established. And you don't want to make it so thick that you're wasting a lot of paint. And again, you're making the top and the side the same initial colors. Now I like to do, when I've done these, I like to do the main colors because they're straight out of the tube and there's no mixing involved. It's pretty simple to just, you know, get a bunch of paint right out of the tube and get your initial run down the left side and the top side. And that makes it much easier because you sort of can remember what it is that you're mixing, and it sort of clarifies the structure of what you're doing. Okay, for this last one, this is dioxin. And you know, this is one of those colors that I mentioned in class where it's really dark, you know, so right out of the tube it's this incredibly strong tinting strength, but it's very, very dark in its inherent value. I'm not going to do it to the straight out of the tube color, but it's very hard to see that color just by itself without any admixture because it's so dark. And in a painting, you know, that color is really going to, what I always talk about, how really dark colors just kind of drop into a void and they don't feel spatial. So you can deal with it that way and just put it in the way it comes out of the tube. But you can see in a thinner version of it, if it's transparent, you can really see the color a lot more. And that's the difference between, like, quinacridone and dioxin purple are both transparent. So if I were to put this in very thinly, you'd be able to see the color. So I'll just show you this. If I wipe a bunch of this out so it's just a glaze, you can see that the color is actually pretty rich. And because you're not adding white to it, you actually get a really chromatic color when you use these transparent, strong colors transparently on a white surface to raise the value rather than adding white. So that's another reason why indirect painting, which is a more traditional Renaissance approach to painting, lends itself to these really luminous colors. Okay, so that looks pretty sloppy, but you know, the sloppy part is on the tape. So now what I want to do here is I'm going to mix the red and the yellow here, and I'm going to try to find the halfway point between there. What's the halfway point between the yellow? So let's see, where am I mixing? Let's do it right down here. If I take the yellow, and then what you'll want to do before you dip into the pure paint is clean your palette knife off again, so that when you go and get the quinacridone, you know, it's pure paint. And then you want to mix these until you have what is an optical mixture between the two colors. And you can kind of judge it. Does this seem like a halfway point? This seems closer in value to that than it does to the quinacridone, so I'm going to put a little bit more of the quinacridone in here. And then once you have a mixture you're pleased with in terms of its value, its admixture of the two colors together, you know, you want to have enough that you can make the two different bits of color. So I don't really have enough, so I'm going to mix some more here. And you can sometimes just sneak a little without polluting it, but it's better to be safe and clean your palette knife before you do that. If you put the two colors you're mixing next to one another on the palette and you mix between them, it's easier to ascertain what the value relationships are, whether you've gotten it dark enough. But when you do this, when you mix the color, the benefit with the palette knife is you can scrape it up and you get a nice clean passage of it. So what I'm doing on this is the downside, so this side would be the just admixtures of the two. The upside would be the tint side, and you'll see that in my chart. So this is these two colors, and then the mixture is here. So hopefully the value is halfway between the yellow and the red, and because you're only mixing the two colors, you know, you get to see what the combination of these two colors does in terms of chroma, whether it's an intense color or not. And I just did this again. And I'm only doing these errors so that I can show you how to fix them. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So you can come in here with a paper towel with some terps on it and just kind of wipe that area back out. I should have mixed more of this color, but as long as it's a clear covering, then you can take that same color, and I've decided I want my value to be at about a value 7 or 8 here. So now I'm going to take that color and try to judge it, and it might already be in that zone, but I think it's probably a little too dark yet. So I'm going to take a little bit of white, and I'm going to see what this looks like as a tint. So by adding white to the two colors I've mixed, and even if the mixture gives you something that's right here, mix a little white into it, even if it makes it lighter than the color you're kind of going for, because you want to see what happens when you add white to it. That's really the goal here. So now this is red and yellow together here, but I'm putting it on this side, and that's really probably not enough white. And you shouldn't do what I just did. So I'm going to scrape this back out. And the nice thing about this is there's no transient colors from your brush or from some other part of the palette. So you know it's just going to be the two colors and the white. So now when I put this in, you can see that the value here is lighter. It's a little more of a tint than the version on the other side. And that just lets me see what the admixture of white does to the color. Right. Now if I take, let's do the red and the purple here. So if I get the red, quinacridone red, and I clean this off and I mix it with some dioxin purple. These are both pretty low values. I probably put too much dioxin. I put way too much dioxin in here. Now, because dioxin is such a high tinting strength color, it basically just ate all of that quinacridone. So now I need to really put more of that red in here to find the halfway point. And this is pretty good, I think. Now, it's pretty dark. You can still see into it a little bit. So I'm not gonna add white to this one. Well, maybe I will just a smidge, just to show you guys what the difference is. I'll put it underneath so you can see how it changes it. So if I put this in and mix, this is mixture of the red and the purple. You can see because they're both dark, it gets a little bit hard to read. right? But if I take the tiniest bit, just the tiniest bit of white, not much at all, and I mix it in to that, I still have the dark color. I'll just put it down here. I still have the dark color, but by just having a tiniest bit of that white in there, it brings just enough light into it, enough white into it to pull the value up out of the dark, so you get a little bit, I mean, it's very subtle, the difference, but it has a big visual impact. Now if I take that same color and I add a lot of white to it, and I start thinking about value 7 that I was looking at over here, still a little dark, add a little more white to it. And one of the places where people have a really hard time with mixing is generally mixing dark colors to a light value, because they tend to wind up mixing through a bunch of colors, and then you wind up with this real by the time it gets to what the color that you're trying to get to, you've added 2 or 3 other things and the color winds up really suffering. So if you can be really careful when you're mixing dark colors into light tones, you know, trying to get clean mixtures, that really helps. So this is that sort of that color with some white in it. So it's the same thing. You just have to find the placement. So here's the purple and here's the red, but this is on the high side, so it's the tint side. Okay. Now there's one more to get here, and that is the yellow with the dioxin purple, and then the yellow with the dioxin purple in a tint. So I'm doing this rather rapidly. Particularly when you first start, you might want to do this a little bit more slowly to try to get cleaner mixtures. If you have a nice small sort of wedge-shaped palette knife like I have here, that makes it a lot easier. The other nice thing about having like a glass palette, which is what I have here, is that you can clean it really simply as you're working and just continue working. So if I take my scraper, it's very easy on a glass palette, or a wooden palette if you don't gouge it, to really just clean it all off. And then you can take a little terps, and you might want to wear gloves for this. I've got cadmium all over my hand now, but you can come in here and just clean this back to the glass. I'm leaving the purple over here because I'm going to use it again. So now I'm going to take the purple here. I want to make sure I have enough for this mixture. And that's another thing, the first few of these, it'll take you a while to figure out how much paint you need to make a mixture that'll hit just the regular mixture side and the one where you're going to add the white. So clean this off so there's no purple on it. And then get some of this yellow and find the middle point. Now the middle point, because purple's so strong, is going to be a lot more cadmium yellow and a lot less dioxin purple. That's actually not bad in terms of compared to the yellow, compared to this, it's much lighter than that and much darker than that. So that's a pretty good mixture actually. But it's kind of a, even though it's purple and yellow and it's supposed to be this sort of mixture that makes a nice halftone, this is kind of a brown color, and you'll get a lot of these kind of weird neutrals when you mix complements. So purple and yellow, you get this, you know, unexpected color that purple and yellow would lead you to this color that's very akin to like what raw sienna might look like. You know, and that's another thing you'll find as you do more of this that I think is quite helpful. So now I have that pattern of X's down the middle, so I know the distinction between this side and that side. So this is yellow and purple together, and so it goes in this spot. And this looks way sloppier than it actually is. Although I did hit the X again. So maybe it isn't any more sloppy than it actually is. The other thing you can do when you're doing this is, you know, once you pull the tape off, you can actually, you know, hit these areas with white paint to bring them back to that middle value. That white. So I'm going to take this color, I'm going to add white to it, and again I'm going to think about this value that I'm trying to get to. And so now I'm taking purple and yellow and white, and it's pretty unexpected. Because if you look at this next to the purple, you can understand how the purple is in there, but it doesn't look purple. It just looks this kind of beige. But as you do more mixtures like this, you start to understand the properties of color mixture, and you start to be more able to read how, you know, when I look at this, I can see the purple in that color when I see it next to the yellow. And that's the kind of thing that gives you, you know, clear information when you're looking at like a shadow on a flesh color, and you can kind of see what the admixture with the lit side is to get that shadow side. So it just kind of tunes your eye. So remember that they're opposite across this channel of blank spaces. So, you know, this is the light version of that, this is the light version of that, and this I added later just to show you something. So this admixture is purple and yellow together on the tint side. And actually, if you mix more paint like I'm doing on these last couple, it's just way easier to just hit it and put it in place. So say I just continue doing that throughout the whole chart, which is what you'll do, and then once it's done, you want to be careful about, you know, what of these you put on top, because you want to pull the top ones off first. You don't want to try to pull the lower tape off first, because it's going to get caught on this. So you want to pull the top paint off first, and then you want to put it in a nice pile where it's not going to get paint on everything you own, right? This is on top of that. I did it out of order, which, you know, it helps if you do all your verticals and then all your horizontals, because then you can pull them off in a certain order, and it works. So once the thing is done, you can start to pull these off. Let's see, what order did I do these? Now there are often, little glitches that you have to go back and paint back to the white of the canvas. My experience was that happens on the first few, and then you kind of adjust by, burnishing the tape down a little bit better, so that the paint doesn't get under it, and then you're a little more careful in how you put the mixtures down. Let's see, so did these out of order, so don't do this. That's why I did it this way, was to remind you not to do it that way. It's not true, I forgot. It's been a while. But you can learn from my error, so that's good. Okay, so, I put this one on in addition, because I wanted to show you what this color with a little bit of a mixture of white is. And then, what I would generally do, I would wait till this is dry, but I can show you the basic idea of it. If there's any errant paint, you can wipe it out. You can wait till it's dry and wipe it out, which is probably better, to just wait until it's dry and then paint over it. So, but I'll just show you what it will look like when you paint back over any of the errant problems.